This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. Good morning, I'm John Trout. It's Wednesday, March 26th, 2025. Here's what's coming up on America in the Morning.
President Trump is downplaying his national security team texting a military operation plan on a signal chat group. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
House Republicans counterattack as federal judges strike down executive actions. I'm Rich Johnson.
The gunman who killed 23 people in a 2019 attack at an El Paso Walmart has been offered a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. I'm Jennifer King.
More backlash over comments made by a Democratic Congresswoman.
Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there.
I'm Clayton Neville.
On Wall Street, stocks eked out a winning day yesterday while consumer confidence tanked again. I'm Jessica Ettinger.
Dry conditions, wind and trees down by Hurricane Helene fueled wildfires in North Carolina. I'm Julie Walker.
All ahead on America in the Morning. As President Trump downplays the situation surrounding the Yemen War Plans group chat, National Security Advisor Mike Waltz told Fox News he's taking full responsibility for using the unclassified commercial chat app. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports a contentious Senate hearing on Tuesday left some on the Senate Intelligence Committee questioning how the situation could have ever happened.
If it's not classified, share the text with the committee. Director Gabbard, you are the security executive and set access guidelines for classified information. Did you contact the defense secretary or others after this specific military planning was put out and say, hey, we should be doing this in a SCIF?
There was no classified material that was shared in that
So then if there was no classified material, share it with the committee.
President Trump is downplaying his national security team texting a military operation plan on a signal chat group that included a journalist.
It's just something that can happen.
The president says no one needs to apologize for the incident, in which the Atlantic's Jeffrey Goldberg was somehow added to the chat. He tells ABC News Digital there was a lot of information about upcoming strikes in Yemen.
If the editor-in-chief of the Atlantic is being given access to this kind of information, weapons systems and packages and timing and weather in Yemen and all kinds of information about sequencing of particular events, then obviously there's a security breach.
Pentagon Chief Pete Hegseth dismisses Goldberg as a hack.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does. Nobody was texting war plans.
And at a Senate hearing,
there was no classified material that was shared.
Still, National Intelligence Director Tulsi Gabbard and other officials got an earful from Democrats like Mark Warner, who ripped the administration for its handling of sensitive information.
Sloppy, careless.
Colorado's Michael Bennet went further.
It's an embarrassment.
House Speaker Mike Johnson says it was just a mistake.
And I don't think anyone should have lost their job over that.
Democrat Ron Wyden says at least two people should.
Starting with the National Security Advisor and the Secretary of Defense.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
House Republicans are mounting a two-part strategy to fight what they say is overreach by some federal judges. Details from correspondent Rich Johnson.
Federal courts have struck down more than a dozen of President Trump's executive actions, including immigration, spending freezes, firing federal workers, banning gender-affirming care for minors, and the attempt to end birthright citizenship. House Judiciary Committee Chair, Ohio Republican Jim Jordan, says the panel will hold a hearing next week on that, called Judicial Overreach and Constitutional Limits on the Federal Courts.
All these judges' injunctions and then decisions like Judge Boasberg, what he's trying to do and how that case is working. We're going to have hearings on all of that.
Jordan referred to District Judge James Boasberg, who blocked the White House from using the centuries-old Alien Enemies Act to deport suspected gang members. Meanwhile, House Speaker Mike Johnson plans to bring to the floor a bill that cleared Jordan's committee earlier this month that would radically limit district judges' powers.
Instead of these federal district judges issuing an injunction that applies to the entire country, we think it should be limited to the parties of the case in that respective jurisdiction.
Jordan's comments courtesy of Fox News. When that bill made it out of judiciary, the panel's top Democrat, Maryland's Jamie Raskin, made this comparison.
It would be as if the law had been that in Brown versus Board of Education, the ruling to desegregate the schools applied only to Linda Brown herself and the handful of other plaintiffs who came with her, rather than applying across the country.
Raskin said President Trump losing in the courts nearly every day is not a reason to rewrite the long-standing rules of how judges' decisions are applied. I'm Rich Johnson.
Congresswoman mocks disabled governor. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Update on snowfall with AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Ferrick.
There won't be much snow to deal with today across the lower 48, but the place we're most likely to see some flakes will be across the mountains of New England, New York, and Pennsylvania. Even in the mountains, high temperatures are going to climb above freezing, so any accumulation is expected to be limited to only the highest elevations. The chilly air will be the main weather story of the northeastern U.S. today, with temperatures across the interior only reaching into the 40s for daytime highs, with low 50s near the coast from Philadelphia up through New York City. We'll have some beautiful weather in the southeast today, with plenty of sunshine from the Carolinas to the Gulf Coast and down through Florida, with highs in the 60s, 70s, and even a few 80s. If you like it hot, the desert Southwest continues to be the place to be today, with highs into the 90s. From Palm Springs over to Phoenix. While these places are used to the heat in the summer, it's definitely well above average for late March. The bulk of the unsettled weather today across the lower 48 will be in the Pacific Northwest, where we are expecting to see thunderstorms capable of producing damaging wind gusts and hail from the Willamette Valley northward to Seattle, Tacoma, and Olympia. Storms will be capable of producing some intense downpours that can cause widespread ponding on the roads in the region. The other place we have to be concerned about seeing some heavy rain will be in South Texas. While flooding is possible, any rain we get will generally be beneficial in the Rio Grande Valley up through San Antonio and Austin. And that's the weather across America. In Seattle today, gusty afternoon thunderstorms, high 71. Meanwhile, in New York City, breezy and chilly with clouds breaking for some sunshine with a high around 50. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Ferrick.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. A lone gunman who killed 23 people in an attack targeting Hispanic shoppers at a Texas Walmart in 2019, already serving life sentences for his crimes, was also facing the death penalty. But the El Paso County prosecutor has offered the shooter a plea deal to spare his life. Correspondent Jennifer King has the update.
The gunman who killed 23 people in a 2019 attack at an El Paso Walmart has been offered a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. Patrick Crucius has already been sentenced to 90 consecutive life sentences at the federal level. El Paso County District Attorney James Montoya said he supports the death penalty, but his decision was driven by victims' families who wanted to put the case behind them. Under the new offer, the 26-year-old shooter would receive life in prison with no possibility of parole. The mass shooting was one of the deadliest in U.S. history. Crucius appears to have been consumed by hatred for Hispanics and debate over immigration before he drove more than 700 miles and opened fire at the Walmart with an AK-style rifle. I'm Jennifer King.
A congresswoman is facing backlash for comments she made about the disability of Texas Governor Greg Abbott. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
It's the latest attention Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of Dallas is getting over her language and her edgy comments. Last year, her eyelashes were a topic of discussion after she and Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene got into it on Capitol Hill. This week, it's these comments that she made about Governor Greg Abbott during a human rights campaign dinner.
Because we in these hot-ass Texas streets, honey. Y'all know we got Governor Hot Wheels down there. Come on now.
The Texas governor is in a wheelchair.
And the only thing hot about him is that he is a hot-ass mess, honey.
Republicans like Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton have called the comments despicable, and others are floating the idea of a censure for Crockett. But the congresswoman defending her comments, saying that she wasn't thinking about the governor's condition Instead, about, quote, the planes, trains, and automobiles Abbott used to transfer migrants into communities Crockett says are led by black mayors. I'm Clayton Neville.
Warren Buffett's $1 million prize claimed. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. The Business Report is brought to you by Fisher Investments. Fisher Investments takes a disciplined approach with investing, helping clients navigate volatile markets. Learn more at FisherInvestments.com. Well, how will we find markets at the opening bell? Here's CNBC's Jessica Ettinger.
Wall Street opens this morning after very slight gains for stocks yesterday. The Dow was up 4 points, but that's a win. The S&P 500 index up 9. The Nasdaq was up 80 points. One investor says peak uncertainty may have been achieved.
You've probably seen peak uncertainty on a range of policy outcomes, but I think there's still uncertainty. However, next week we're going to have an announcement, and I think there is probably some headline risk that in a negotiating approach, the administration may put a very big number out there to then work its way back as it's done in the past.
Neuberger Berman's Joseph Amato on CNBC. Consumer confidence is sliding as Americans' view of their own financial futures slump to a 12-year low. Anxiety over tariffs and inflation is going up. People say they're putting off spending on especially expensive things like homes or cars to see what happens with the tariffs, the economy, and whether they're going to have a job. Newly built home sales came in below expectations for February.
It's a slight gain, but it's a weak gain. Mortgage rates came down during February pretty sharply, so you might have expected a little better. Prices, though, down 1.5% to $414,500. That's the median price of a home sold in February. But I want to touch on consumer confidence because we did get KB Home earnings, and they were a big miss. CEO Jeff Metzger pointed to economic uncertainty and cooling buyer confidence, saying demand at the start of this spring selling season was more muted than what we've seen historically. It's a very difficult spring ahead.
CNBC's Diana Olick. For the first time in nearly a decade, a Berkshire Hathaway employee claimed CEO Warren Buffett's $1 million grand prize in his company's NCAA March Madness Bracket Challenge. Berkshire's a conglomerate. It owns companies like Geico Insurance and Benjamin Moore Paint, Fruit of the Loom, Dairy Queen, and lots more.
Buffett had relaxed the rules multiple times since the contest's inception in 2016. This year, the rules were changed so that anyone who picked the winners of at least 30 of the tournament's 32 first-round games would be eligible to win that prize. Well, it turns out 12 Berkshire employees guessed 31 of the 32 games correctly. The $1 million prize went to the employee who picked 29 games consecutively before a loss. That employee works at aviation training company Flight Safety International, which is a subsidiary of Berkshire.
CNBC's Becky Quick. Starbucks in the collaboration marketing game. It has Peanuts merchandise in cafes today, including a Snoopy cold cup and mugs featuring Charlie Brown and the whole gang. On today's watch list, we get earnings from Dollar Tree, Petco, and Chewy. We get the latest on durable goods orders. Those are things made to last a long time, like airplanes and washing machines.
Or so we hope. CNBC's Jessica Ettinger. Federal judge orders halt to deportations. When America in the Morning continues after these messages. You're with America in the Morning. A federal judge has ordered immigration authorities to halt, for now, their efforts to detain a Columbia University student who claims she's being targeted for her involvement in pro-Palestinian protests. And as a proactive move, a district judge in Manhattan has issued a temporary restraining order against the government for her possible expulsion. 21-year-old Yoon Seo Chung was born in Korea and does hold a U.S. green card. The Department of Homeland Security issued an arrest order for Chung, who had previously been arrested during an anti-Israel campus protest. Her next hearing is scheduled in the month of May. Also this morning, mandatory evacuations are underway as wildfires in North and South Carolina remain out of control. Correspondent Julie Walker has the latest.
Dry conditions, wind, and trees downed by Hurricane Helene fueled wildfires in North Carolina and South Carolina, where evacuation orders were in effect Tuesday.
This is a difficult situation. You know, a lot of the folks here are still getting over the aftermath of Hurricane Helene. A lot of the damage and the blowdown, the downed trees from Hurricane Helene are contributing to the difficulties that our firefighters are facing trying to contain this fire. And so that has just been kind of one ongoing crisis.
Bo Dossett with North Carolina Forest Service says more than 5,000 acres have burned in 3 wildfires in Polk and Henderson counties, and red flag warnings are in effect.
We are starting to see fire behavior on the Black Cove complex start to increase as these winds come up, as the humidity drops and the temperature rises.
In neighboring South Carolina, 2 fires are burning in a mountainous region in Table Rock State Park and nearby Persimmon Ridge. A forestry professor says trees down during last year's Hurricane Helene dropped tons of fuel on the ground for the fires. I'm Julie Walker.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, March 29th, 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One. This is America in the Morning from Westwood One. I'm John Trout. Coming up this half hour.
War plans were texted to a group chat.
I think I've discovered a massive security breach.
Ed Donahue, Washington.
Vice President J.D. Vance announces he will be visiting Greenland on Friday. I'm John Stolnis in Washington.
The National Medal of Honor Museum opens its doors in Texas. I'm Clayton Neville.
The U.S. says there's an agreement to stop fighting in the Black Sea.
Making a lot of progress.
Sagar Meghani, Washington.
President Trump issues an executive order on election rules. Alleged harassment leads to a college football coach's firing, and new details on the New Mexico mass shooting.
The reboot of the James Bond franchise hits a milestone. I'm Kevin Carr.
Back after these messages. This is America in the Morning. Update now on the national weather picture and some potential spring severe weather. Here's AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Farrick.
The greatest risk for severe thunderstorms today is in a place where we might not normally expect to see it, across the Pacific Northwest. While the day is likely to start out dry along the I-5 corridor, some thunderstorms are expected to break out in the afternoon, spreading from Eugene and Portland northward, eventually making it into the Seattle vicinity, very likely impacting travel by ground and by air across the region. Thunderstorms will be capable of producing damaging wind gusts, hail, and even a couple of isolated tornadoes. There's also some risk for a few severe thunderstorms east of the Cascades later in the afternoon into the evening, including in places like Pendleton and Spokane. The other place to watch for a localized severe thunderstorm will be in deep South Texas, where some hail and a damaging wind gust cannot be ruled out. That being said, the rain that we see from thunderstorms over South Texas today and tonight will generally be beneficial, considering the long-term drought conditions that the area has been experiencing. Early season heat will continue today across the desert Southwest, with many locations across the region surging into the 90s again, with even a few places touching 100 from Southeast California eastward into Arizona. It's getting pretty late in the season to see widespread snow over the lower 48, but we will see some snow showers today over the higher elevations of New England, New York, and northern Pennsylvania. That being said, there won't be much in terms of accumulation in any of these areas, with temperatures during the day climbing well above the freezing mark. We'll have another dry and chilly day over the Great Lakes today, and some pretty nice weather in the southeast once again, with plenty of sunshine and widespread high temperatures in the 60s and 70s, even a few 80s across Florida. That's the nation's weather. I'm AccuWeather.com meteorologist John Farrick.
Remember to follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Amazon. Just search America in the Morning in your favorite listening app. The Trump administration finds itself embroiled in a security incident after a journalist was inadvertently placed in a group chat involving high-ranking national security members, including the vice president, discussing an imminent U.S. military attack against Yemen. Correspondent Ed Donahue reports on what was said by the reporter and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, along with the response of the leadership in the U.S. Senate.
Text chains that are exchanged privately, I think you have to put that into context for what it is. I think you have to look at what the president says and what the people around him are saying.
Even after the administration confirmed the authenticity of the texts, Secretary Hegseth continued to deflect and blame the reporter. He does something really damaging to national security, and he blames the reporter who his people sent the information to.
The White House says President Trump still has the utmost confidence in his national security team after war plans were texted to a group chat.
Nobody was texting war plans, and that's all I have to say about that. Thank you.
The editor of The Atlantic, Jeffrey Goldberg, says he was included in that group chat.
I think I've discovered a massive security breach in the United States national security system. If the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic is being given access to this kind of information, weapons systems and packages and timing and weather in Yemen and all kinds of information about sequencing of particular events, then obviously there's a security breach.
Goldberg told ABC there were not only details about attacks on Houthi rebels in Yemen.
A lot of resentment directed at European allies of the United States, which obviously enhanced the credibility of this chain because everybody in the chain sounded like the people I know who are in this administration.
Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth says nobody was texting war plans and called Goldberg a so-called journalist who likes to peddle hoaxes.
You're talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again, to include the hoaxes of Russia, or the fine people on both sides hoax, or suckers and losers hoax. So this is the guy that peddles in garbage. This is what he does.
Democrats want a full investigation. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Vice President Vance and his wife will head with an American delegation to Greenland, a self-governing region of Denmark that's become a focus of American expansion for President Trump. John Stolnis has more on the story from Washington.
Earlier this week, the White House announced Second Lady Usha Vance would lead the delegation, but on social media yesterday, the vice president declared he is going too.
There was so much excitement around Usha's visit to Greenland this Friday that I decided that I didn't want her to have all that fun by herself, and so I'm going to join her. I'm going to visit some of our guardians in the Space Force on the northwest coast of Greenland and also just check out what's going on with the security there of Greenland.
Vance says a visit like this is long overdue.
Unfortunately, leaders in both America and in Denmark, I think, ignored Greenland for far too long. That's been bad for Greenland. It's also been bad for the security of the entire world. We think we can take things in a different direction, so I'm going to go check it out.
President Trump has said for months that he would like for Greenland to become American property. Greenland's prime minister does not want the American delegation to visit at this time, calling it highly aggressive. Mark Jacobson from the Royal Danish Defense College explains.
Greenland doesn't have a government in place, so it's all about timing. From Greenland's side, also from Denmark's side, it's more seen as an kind of intimidation.
At a cabinet meeting on Monday, Trump disputed claims the United States is not welcome there right now.
We've been invited, and they really like the idea.
A recent Danish poll found only 8% of Greenlanders want U.S. citizenship. 55% said they want Danish citizenship. However, most say they support independence as long as their quality of life doesn't suffer. John Stolnis, Washington.
The National Medal of Honor Museum is officially open to the public. Correspondent Clayton Neville reports.
On National Medal of Honor Day, the doors to the National Medal of Honor Museum in Arlington, Texas were open to the public after a short ceremony with dignitaries and several Medal of Honor recipients. The museum sits adjacent to AT&T Stadium, home of the Dallas Cowboys. Team owner Jerry Jones's daughter, Charlotte Jones, an instrumental part in bringing the museum to the DFW area.
It's about bringing our whole country together. And you think about, why now? I truly believe that our country needs this now. More than maybe it did 10, 20 years ago. Yeah. We need something that we can all rally behind and realize that we actually share the same values of courage and valor and sacrifice. And when you hear these stories, it's every one of us. And we need to hear these stories and we need to remember them and maybe take away a little insight for ourselves and be better people tomorrow.
The Medal Medal of Honor came to be during the Civil War. Less than 4,000 men have received the honor and one woman.
It's a living project, and their stories are real, and there's only 60 living recipients today, and we had 30 of them here this weekend. But as you approach the museum, you think, how in the world does this structure work? Because it's this huge block of steel. There are these 5 big columns that hold it up, and the stories are basically floating in the air.
President and CEO of the museum, Chris Cassidy, told me that the state-of-the-art technology in the 100,000 square foot space, elevated by pillars that represent the branches of the military, help tell the recipient's stories.
Cool things like that, interactive screen where you walk up and magically content appears before your very eyes. Conversation with a recipient in there with artificial intelligence that can stitch together hours of recordings that we have with a number of different recipients. A helicopter rescue mission that you can put virtual goggles on and fly a mission, and that it's more about the decision making. Do I go get fuel now, or do I go rescue them now, and that kind of thing.
The project cost an estimated $300 million, which was paid for with contributions from donors and dignitaries like the Jones family. I'm Clayton Neville.
Under scrutiny, college coach fired, and learning more about the app Signal. Plus, midweek sports. Those stories and more ahead when America in the Morning continues after these messages. President Trump signs a wide-ranging executive order to overhaul elections in the United States. His newest order includes requiring documentary proof of citizenship to register to vote in federal elections, and all ballots cast must be received by Election Day. The order also calls on states to work with federal agencies to share voter lists and prosecute election crimes, and threatens to pull federal funding from states where election officials don't comply. The move's expected to face multiple legal challenges as states have broad authority to set their own election rules, including for early voting, mail-in and provisional ballots, and in-person voting schedules. The Trump administration says it's brokered a Black Sea safe shipping deal in talks with Ukraine and Russia, another step in the process of bringing peace to the region. Washington correspondent Sagar Meghani reports.
The agenda is stop the killing, stop the carnage. Let's end this thing. You can't end things without communicating with both sides, understanding what each of them need, and then trying to bring them together.
The U.S. says there's an agreement to stop fighting in the Black Sea and ensure safe navigation as it ended 3 days of talks with Ukrainian and Russian delegations in a bid to reach a ceasefire.
We are making a lot of progress.
President Trump gave no details. But Ukrainian leader Volodymyr Zelensky says the talks are the initial right steps toward ending the 3-year war. The agreement appears to mark another attempt to ensure safe Black Sea shipping after Russia halted a 2022 agreement. Russia's top diplomat says Moscow's now open to reviving the deal, but warns Russia's interests must be protected, and the Kremlin's making any agreement conditional on some Western sanctions being lifted. A senior Ukrainian official says Kyiv is not on board with that, and a comprehensive peace deal still looks far off. Sagar Meghani, Washington.
A well-known college football coach is out of a job after being investigated for mistreating staffers. Correspondent Gethin Coolball reports.
Stanford fired football coach Troy Taylor following a report last week that he had been investigated twice for allegedly mistreating staffers. General Manager Andrew Luck announced the decision on Tuesday. ESPN reported last week that Taylor had been investigated twice since taking over before the 2023 season over allegations of hostile and aggressive behavior, as well as personal attacks against female staff members. Taylor finishes with a 6-18 record and no bowl appearances in 2 seasons at Stanford. I'm Gethin Coolball.
More is being learned about the mass shooting in New Mexico over the weekend and heroic efforts by police to help those gripped with fear in the crossfire. Correspondent Haya Panjwani reports.
Newly released video footage and 911 emergency calls show a chilling scene of people panicking as gunfire crackled in a New Mexico park during an unauthorized car show.
Got it.
Authorities said the fatal shooting started after an altercation broke out between two groups at the gathering. Some of the at least 15 wounded were bystanders who weren't involved in the dispute between the two groups. Body camera footage showed a police officer tending to a victim who was caught in the crossfire.
Hands up. You're going to be okay. I need you to calm down, okay? Okay, breathe. Breathe.
Police Chief Jeremy Story in Las Cruces explains 3 people were killed.
And one thing I do want to say up front, too, this is not a traditional active shooter event where the motive or the motivation is to kill and injure as many people as you can, as quickly as you can. Unfortunately, the results were the same.
4 people are facing murder charges, including 3 teenagers. I'm Haya Panjwani.
The messaging app Signal is at the center of a big data leak, but not due to hacking. As to what Signal is, here's Chuck Palm with today's tech news.
Top Trump administration officials have mistakenly included a journalist into a chat room they were using to discuss sensitive military movements against Yemen's Houthis. Signal is an open-source messaging application supported by donations and described by Signal CEO Meredith Whitaker as the gold standard in private comms. Signal relies on a proprietary end-to-end encryption and is a preferred way of passing sensitive information due to the fact that they do not store messaging data and delete chats after a prescribed time. While it is technically not banned in government organizations, it could subvert certain laws that require all messages be archived and backed up for record-keeping purposes. Signal has been used for over a decade to keep communications private, but its use at the federal level is highly discouraged. Due to its unique encryption, there has never been a reported case of Signal being hacked, and the mystery of how a reporter was invited to this high-level private chat is still ongoing. Find me at chuckpalm.com.
Wednesday Sports is in. Here's America in the Morning's Robert Workman.
Hockey Tuesday, the Jets edged the Capitals 3-2 in overtime in a clash of the top 2 teams in the NHL this season. Nikolai Ehlers had the breakaway winner to clinch a playoff spot for Winnipeg after Alex Ovechkin had tied the game late for D.C. with his 889th career goal. He's just 5 behind Wayne Gretzky.
It's a fun time, obviously, but you just have to enjoy it. It's a special moment. Obviously, everybody was watching. Everybody pay attention to that.
Wins last night for the Avalanche, Sabres, Maple Leafs, Lightning, Predators, Blues, Golden Knights, Flames, and Kings. NBA, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander had 32 points to lead the Thunder to their 7th straight win, 121-105 over the Kings. That's number 60 on the season for OKC, which has clinched the best record in the Western Conference. The top team in the East, the Cavaliers, put out the Blazers 122-111. 58 wins for Cleveland. Bucks guard Damian Lillard out indefinitely with a blood clot in his right calf. College basketball, the NCAA men's Sweet 16 begins Thursday. The women's Sweet 16 starts on Friday. NIT quarterfinals last night, Chattanooga tripped Bradley, and North Texas nipped Oklahoma State, so the Mocs and the Mean Green are heading to Indianapolis next week. And in the NFL, Russell Wilson and the Giants have agreed to a 1-year deal worth up to $21 million. That's Wednesday Sports.
Thank you, Robert. 007 is back when we return on America in the Morning after these messages. America in the Morning continues. French movie legend Gerard Depardieu had his day in court answering sexual assault charges filed by 2 women he worked with in 2021. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports the actor denies any wrongdoing.
In his gruff, deep voice,
So familiar to cinema goers, the 76-year-old former Oscar nominee Gérard Depardieu told the court he had used crude and heated language around a woman who accuses him of sexual assault. In the proceedings interval, Depardieu's lawyer, Jérémy Assous, told the AP, the president of the court has confirmed in every respect what was discussed on Monday, namely that all the witnesses who were presented as prosecution witnesses, if you read their entire testimony, are absolutely not prosecution witnesses, but on the contrary, are defence witnesses, since they confirm that they never saw Depardieu assault the plaintiff. Assous adds he thinks the debates would eventually lead to a confrontation or a hearing of these witnesses if the plaintiffs felt that the depositions and the report made on them were not complete. The trial goes on. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
2 new producers are joining the James Bond family, and the next in a long series of Bond films will be in the hands of Amazon. Kevin Carr reports, get ready for the next Bond movie, but not until 2027.
A major decision has been made in the future of the James Bond franchise.
Bond. James Bond.
My name's Bond. James Bond.
My name is Bond. James Bond.
Bond. James Bond. The name's Bond. James Bond.
The name's Bond. James Bond.
No, a new actor has not been chosen to play the iconic spy, but following Amazon MGM securing the rights to the franchise from Barbara Broccoli and Michael Wilson, 2 new producers have been tapped to oversee its reboot. After a week of speculation, on Tuesday, Amazon MGM announced 007's newest producers will be Amy Pascal and David Heyman. Pascal is no stranger to James Bond. While the head of Sony, she oversaw the productions of Casino Royale, Quantum of Solace, Skyfall, and Spectre. Since leaving Sony in 2015, Pascal has spearheaded the new Spider-Man films as well as the Oscar-winning Into the Spider-Verse animated features. Rounding out the production duo is David Heyman. The British producer is best known for his work on the Harry Potter and Fantastic Beasts films. Other productions he has worked on include the first 2 Paddington movies, I Am Legend, and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. In a joint statement on Tuesday, Pascal and Hayden said they were humbled and honored by the decision. I'm Kevin Carr.
America in the Morning for Wednesday, March 26th. 2025 is produced by Jeff McKay. I'm John Trout. This is Westwood One.